Hello and welcome to Granada Reports. We are live with the latest across the Northwest.
Hello, thanks for joining us. Coming up on the programme this evening.
A report reveals a surgeon at one of our leading hospitals left 20 patients with significant injuries. There are calls for a wider review of his work.
If there are patients out there that are suffering, they are looked at, reviewed, recalled and provided with appropriate treatment.
Remembering the 50 people who died in the Isle of Man Summerland fire half a century ago this week.
A magical moment for Larry and Denise. How a party of pub regulars affected by dementia get the most out of their day in Blackpool.
A good day out on the tiles. The famous floor at St George's Hall open to the public for the first time in years.
And they're queuing up for some fine weather in Abram. However, those showers today sent us running for cover and there's little change in the forecast. All the details coming up.
So please do stay with us. But first tonight, reports found 20 patients suffered significant injuries after being operated on by the same surgeon at one of our region's top hospitals.
The report focused on patients who had spinal surgery at Salford Royal. It looked at the conduct and capability of their senior surgeon, John Bradley Williamson. It found some of his patients were left with a number of issues, such as serious blood loss, long-term pain and mobility problems.
The alarm was raised in 2021 after a group of Mr Williamson's colleagues said they could raise concerns previously raised about him hadn't been properly investigated.
Yeah, our reporter Emma Sweeney is with us now to tell us more. Tell us more about this report, Emma.
Well, Lucy, the report was commissioned by the trust which now runs Salford Royal Infirmary, and it related to around 130 patients who'd been treated by Mr Williamson between 2009 and 2014. It was overseen by surgeons and an independent expert. Now, why did it come about? Well, it came about because there was concerns around Mr Williamson's conduct. And I think it's important to point out Mr Williamson held a number of senior positions at this trust over the years. Now, the report found Mr Williamson had displayed unacceptable and unprofessional behaviour, and that led to the harm of 20 of his patients. It highlighted things like screws being misplaced or surgery that was poorly planned or people going for surgery and suffering high blood loss for that surgery. Some patients still living with the consequences of that. Some have chronic mobility issues, some chronic pain and other issues besides. Now, we've spoken to a lawyer who's representing at least one of Mr Williamson's former patients. Earlier on, she told me change is now needed.
And the key point is that we want lessons to be learned in terms of the listening to patients and making sure that their views are being listened to, and that learning is adapted across the trust in terms of how can we avoid these kind of issues occurring. But most importantly, if there are patients out there that are suffering, that they are looked at, reviewed, recalled and provided with appropriate treatment and rehabilitation as necessary.
So Emma, what have the trust said?
Well, the first thing I think to point out is Mr Williamson ceased working for the trust 8 years ago. But today we got a statement from them in which they said every patient has the right to receive a good standard of care, and where this is not the case, they deserve to understand what went wrong. Sadly, in this case, things did go wrong and 20 patients were harmed. For this, we are deeply sorry. It went on to say our spinal unit provides safe care for our patients, and people should be assured that we've been in touch with anyone whose care or treatment we needed to look at. Now, tonight, the Trust was also telling us that any patient who has concerns should feel free to come forward with those concerns for any advice.
Yeah, very concerning stuff. OK, Emma, thank you.
Now, this week marks the saddest of anniversaries. It's half a century since 50 people died at the Summerland holiday complex in the Isle of Man, and there's been a special memorial service for some of those who were affected by it.
The names of all those who died were read out. The island's chief minister said hearing the personal testimonies of survivors had been, in his words, truly humbling.
Hundreds were also injured when the fire swept through the complex near Douglas on August the 2nd, 1973. More commemorations will be held on the actual anniversary this Wednesday.
Our Isle of Man reporter Joshua Stokes joined the congregation.
June Cheetham, Frederick William Glazer, Olive Bertha Glazer.
50 names for 50 years.
Deborah Jane Moulds, Amanda Jean Moulds.
Survivors, bereaved families and members of the Isle of Man community joined together as one, remembering the 50 people who lost their lives in the Summerland fire. For Jackie, that included her mum and her best friend. The trio travelled to the island on their holiday, but all three became trapped at the centre of the blaze. Jackie was the only one to return home, and through a broken heart comes broken words, as she remains determined to remember them.
Trent and Lorna Bryson Norton.
Their story heard for the first time this year, and acknowledged perhaps in a way never seen before by the Isle of Man government.
I have heard firsthand about the pain and the suffering, the flashbacks, and indeed in some cases the lifelong physical and mental scars. It has been truly humbling, and thank you for sharing such personal experiences with me and with others.
Many are of course stories that have never been heard before, with few only now feeling courageous enough to share. But some still refer to Summerland as the forgotten tragedy, asking the island to do more to remember.
We cannot negate those losses of life and those life-changing injuries. But for those who suffered them, we can honour them. Perhaps that is the gift that we can offer you today. And you may choose to accept it, and I hope that you will, or you may choose not to, and I would understand that if that were the case.
This was a service steeped in sorrow, but also one of binding unity. A show of solidarity between the island and those who suffered here, as the focus now shifts to the anniversary on Wednesday. One final opportunity to remember the 50 people who came on holiday here, but never returned home.
Yeah, what a sad thought that is. Josh joins us now from what remains of that Summerland site. Josh.
Yes, that's right. We're here just overlooking the Summerland site, a poignant site that still acts as a physical and mental reminder of what happened here 50 years ago. And it will be one of the centre points for commemorations that will be taking place here this week on the day of the anniversary. Now, we already know from the national service this weekend, as you would have seen in the piece, that many people have travelled over from the UK to attend the anniversary commemorations this week. So it will be an incredibly poignant moment, a commemoration for those caught up in the fire to meet here on the island in person, some for the very first time. Now on Wednesday, which is the day of the anniversary, there will be two memorial services taking place. One will be happening on the site behind me, and another one will be happening about 200 metres along the promenade at the Summerland Memorial. The government, officials and other members of the local council will be gathering at the Summerland Memorial, whereas some of the survivors and members of the emergency services will be gathering at the Summerland site behind me. Both are also welcoming members of the public, as of course this was a fire that most who are alive in the Isle of Man can remember very vividly, and many here will be hoping this forgotten disaster will be rightly remembered, giving it recognition it finally deserves.
Joshua Stokes, our reporter, battling against the elements in the Isle of Man, and of course we'll have much more on that on Wednesday's programme.
In other news today, and police have arrested a second man on suspicion of murdering a teenager in Ormskirk. Matthew Dolby, who was 19, was stabbed to death at the weekend. Another teenager was injured. An 18-year-old from Scaresbrick and a 20-year-old from Ormskirk both remain in police custody.
The multi-billion-pound plans to build the stretch of the HS2 between London and Crewe have been declared unachievable by an official watchdog. The red rating means major issues were found with the project's schedule, budget and delivery of benefits. But a group of business and civic leaders in the North West warn that calls to scrap the scheme altogether are massively short-sighted.
The malcontents haven't got the right answers. And there are a large number of projects, many of which have now been delivered, that had these red ratings. What it is assigned to deliver them differently. It's not a judgment on whether you should do them at all. What we now need to do is find a delivery model that relies less on lots of bureaucracy at the centre, lots of civil servants in the Treasury and at the Department for Transport, and one that puts more engineers in the driving seat and puts more of the risk back into the private sector.
Rail passengers in the North West are facing more disruption this week because of an overtime ban by train drivers. It's part of the ASLEF union's dispute over pay. The industrial action is affecting 15 rail operators, including Northern, First TransPennine and Avanti. It's expected to last until Saturday. Well, next tonight, we had a massive response to a piece on our programme not so long ago about a pub in Wigan which puts on social events for people affected by dementia.
Yeah, that pub is the Union Arms at Tyldesley. It created the Forgotten Regulars group to stop people with dementia feeling cut off from regular life.
Loneliness has been found to increase the risk of developing dementia by as much as 20%.
Our reporter Anna Yosef went to see what a difference a day at the seaside can make.
Looking forward to a fun day out with friends. These are the Forgotten Regulars, a support group for people with dementia and their carers.
Hiya.
They usually meet at a pub in Wigan, but today they've swapped the bar for the ballroom. When Harry was diagnosed with dementia, he didn't want to leave the house. Now he and wife Ellen are one of the first on the dance floor. For Harry, it's all about making the most of every day.
My long-term memory's fine, my short-term memory's terrible. And if I don't keep doing things and different things, I won't have any memories that are worth remembering.
Later on.
So I've got to keep doing things to get things to remember.
All the group's lives have been touched by dementia, and some have bonded through their loss of a loved one. Anne's husband died from Alzheimer's.
If you've not walked in our shoes, you don't know what it's like. Oh yeah, my goodness, definitely. The guilt is the biggest thing.
It is the biggest thing,
I think,
it is.
Yeah. I waited and waited before my husband went into a home because I just felt so, but I literally couldn't do it anymore. By the time he went in, he was doubly incontinent, he couldn't feed or anything, but I felt so guilty, really felt guilty, and that doesn't go away.
It's the first time Vince has been back to the ballroom since his wife Mary died from dementia. They came here on their honeymoon in the 50s and returned many times.
She loved dancing. She was, the one that remembered the steps and I followed. Believe me, she carried me through 67 years together. She was marvellous. This brings back memories. She's here with me. I'll tell you, she's here with me.
I first met Larry and Denise in May when I did a story about the Forgotten Regulars and their pub socials. Denise has dementia and can no longer speak. The couple have always been keen dancers, but Denise's condition is deteriorating and she now needs a wheelchair. Larry had thought the day out might be too much for her, but the group managed to change his mind.
I didn't want to come because I don't think Denise will be able to manage it, but they've got me this chair to fetch her with, so it enables us to come because now she can't walk very far, can you not walk very far. I just think no other trip would excite me more than coming to here. You know, going to the Tower Ballroom, it's like
I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but at least you can say you've been.
Pub landlady Sharon started the Forgotten Regulars after witnessing her own mother's struggle. She arranges the group's day trips funded by donations.
If you see the smiles on their faces and the love in their heart, this is why it's important to get them to do things that they can't normally do. So we arrange things for them that they've done in the past that they can now continue to do today for a few hours. It's only a few hours out, but it just makes a whole lot of difference to each and every one of them.
And then something unexpected happens. They've been partners in life for more than 50 years, and helped by their friends, Larry and Denise take to the floor for one more dance.
How did it feel when you were out on that dance floor?
You just lose all your cares. You don't think about nothing else. You just think about having a good time, you know, and them times are short when you're caring all the time, you know, and you've nobody really help you. I don't know how things are going to pan out. I hope she just doesn't get any worse, that's all. That's all I can hope for.
For now, they'll just enjoy the music and the magic of the dance floor. Anna Yosef, ITV News, Blackpool.
Absolutely beautiful.
Larry and Denise.
Tears in the studio here. What a beautiful report from Anna that was. And of course, very well done to the wonderful landlady, Sharon Mattin, for making that happen. Let's get on to sport now, and the Wolves are on the hunt for a new coach, Chris.
Yeah, it is one of the toughest jobs in rugby league because the expectation is always so great at Warrington, and Darryl Powell simply didn't live up to those expectations. He's left his role as head coach of the Wolves. The club say he's left by mutual consent after results in the last 18 months have fallen short of the standards they expected. Warrington finished second bottom of Super League last year and have lost 8 of their last 9 games. Elsewhere in Super League, Wigan are up to second in the table after comfortably beating their neighbours Lee Leopards by 44 points to 18. In football, Manchester United will make a decision on Mason Greenwood's future before the start of the season. The striker had been facing charges, including attempted rape and assault, but all those charges were dropped in February. United are conducting their own investigation. In other United news today, they've announced a new 10-year sponsorship deal with Adidas worth £900 million. They'll spend £72 million of that on signing Atalanta striker Rasmus Højlund. That's quite a contrast in fortunes with Bury Football Club, whose financial mismanagement saw them expelled from the Football League 4 years ago. But the fans finally had their moment of celebration at the weekend. The merger of the original club and their Phoenix club opened the door to opening the gates at Gig Lane for the first competitive match there since 2019, a North West Counties League match against Glossop North End. It was a moment no Bury fan wanted to miss. After being locked out of their stadium for 4 years, so many returned, they had to delay the kick-off.
Tell me, what emotions are you going through today?
It's a lot. 4 years of dreaming about this moment, of walking around that corner and seeing this behind me, the fans in the stands and the players warming up on the pitch. I'm struggling to keep it in, to be honest.
It's been emotional. It's just heartbreaking, really, what's happened over these 4 years. But we're all back. Hopefully back as one.
It's just been amazing to watch the volunteers and people in the community bring it back together and bring it alive again, you know.
They've had plenty of special match days here at Gig Lane since this place opened in 1885, but rarely have they had one full of such raw emotion. Everywhere you look today, this place is full of handshakes and hugs, dancing and tears. It's not just about reconnecting with a football club or even a stadium for these fans. It's about reconnecting with each other.
They've all back in the seats that they were in before. They're all hello, hello, and everybody's sharing sweets and everything like 4 years ago. It's unbelievable.
When we got thrown out, it was just as if someone had taken a piece of your life away. And today, it's being given back. It's wonderful.
On paper, Glossop were tough opponents, having played in a higher league last season. But in this cauldron of energy and adrenaline, they never stood a chance. Andy, congratulations on a great start. How did that feel for you?
Oh, incredible. Listen, Bury's back. Whatever league we're in, this community's back. That roar for that first goal, we all felt it.
Saying to the lads, I went numb. Couldn't really hear anything. I was in my own, like my adrenaline got hold of me. But when you came out today, you felt the emotion of everyone being back, and that was just for all of them.
It'd be nice to have a crowd like that every week, wouldn't it?
I think that's important now. Everyone's got to come week in, week out, and the only way we're going to get back up the league is by getting numbers through the gates.
The attendance of 5,500 was a record for the North West Counties League. Those in the stands witnessed what felt like the rebirth of their beloved Bury. Yeah, we all had a fantastic day at Gig Lane. Finally from me, the Isle of Man TT may be over, but the interest in it certainly isn't. Have a look at this new video of just how scary the course is from an angle you don't usually see. It's from a camera mounted on the back of the Honda Fireblade of TT rider Milky Quail, and it's attracted 250,000 views online. Rather him than me is all I've got to say about that. It's terrifying, isn't it?
Oh, my word! Oh, you had a good time in Bury as well.
Absolutely fantastic day out.
Yeah,
Lovely.
the smiles that said it all. So good to see those.
Nice one, Chris.
Thank you. Now then, we saw some of the wonderful benefits of dancing before, but one of the downsides is it can play havoc on a tiled floor. And that's why way back in the 1860s, they decided to put wood over the top of one of the most stunning floors in the world.
It's made of 30,000 Minton tiles at St George's Hall in Liverpool. Well, the good news is for a short time only, those rarely seen tiles are on public display.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how they could ever have thought covering them up was a good idea. Zoe Muldoon has more.
It's been called one of the city's most beautifully preserved pieces of art, and it's not hard to see why. This Victorian mosaic in Liverpool's St George's Hall is usually hidden under wooden flooring, but for a few weeks, visitors are in for a rare treat.
Angie, St George's Hall is already absolutely stunning, isn't it? But this is in particular a real hidden gem.
It's a real hidden gem, and for me this just takes this amazing space to the next level. We want to be able to share these with the city, but for them to be walked on over and over again, you know, which is why we wear protective shoe covers now, which are always great fun as well. People really love putting the protective shoe covers on, but you know, it feels special as well when we reveal this floor.
The mosaic was covered under a wooden floor in 1860 to preserve it from damage from Victorian parties and dancing. This uncovering is the first in 4 years as part of a special exhibition, with proceeds going towards the preservation of the hall. This floor dates back to 1854 and it consists of 30,000 individual tiles, making it one of the largest of its kind in the world. It's taken specialists 3 days to lift the floor's protective wooden cover and another 2 days to clean it.
St George's Hall is the jewel in our crown, and any excuse to try and come in and see what's around the hall, but obviously these amazing tiles which are so intricate, and the detail in them, you know, it's just a piece of our history and it's a piece of art.
From sea god Neptune to mermaids and tridents, these tiles tell the story of Liverpool's rich maritime history.
It's been really thought about. There is a story within these tiles, and one of our guided tours, our fabulous guides, will be in Victorian costume, and they, you know, you'll put your shoe protectors on, you can walk the floor, and they will bring the tale of the tiles to life, which would be fantastic.
20,000 people are expected to catch a glimpse of the ornate floor over the next 2 weeks, before the tiles and its stories are hidden once again. Zoe Muldoon, ITV News, Liverpool.
It should be a campaign not to hide them. They're stunning.
Yeah, one of my favourite buildings, I have to say.
Here's Emma.
Mum, wet wipes, toilet or bin?
Bin. Why?
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello there, hope you've had a good day. So, the last day of July and very little changes as we head into August. And we're just firming up all these stats at the moment. We'll have the full picture for you tomorrow, but it looks like we are definitely on course for it to be the wettest July since 2009. And there's more unsettled weather where that came from. It was very windy yesterday, still quite breezy out there today. And by goodness, we had some showers as well. Wet and windy midweek and then turning cooler. And actually this weekend looks like it's going to be an action replay of last weekend. Joy. It's probably wearing a bit thin now. Tomorrow, there's a little bit of a ridge of high pressure building in. So that'll be the best day of the next few before this low pressure system on Wednesday brings some really heavy rain, could have some localised impacts. And as it moves away, it leaves us in more of a northerly flow, and that's where the cooler air comes from for the second half of the week. Returning though to the next few hours, and to the south of the region, some heavy showers around this evening. Could be some hail and thunder in there as well. And then generally the showers ease off briefly before the next system and occlusion drops southwards with some more rain for us through the early hours of the morning. Poor visibility again, west-facing upslopes really quite murky overnight tonight and into tomorrow as well. Temperatures still comfortably into double figures and still breezier through the Irish Sea. Area sunrise and sunset times for tomorrow: sun's up 5:25 and sets at 9:09 in the evening. So initially quite a wet, cloudy start, and as I say, very murky over the tops of the Pennines, some strong gusts of wind as well there. And then brightening up later from the north, we expect temperatures still subdued by all this cloud cover, with no chance of seeing the supermoon tomorrow night, the first of 2 supermoons this month, and then very wet and windy on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Cleaned up well.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Emma, many thanks indeed. Just so you know, England have won the last test against Australia. Stuart Broad getting the last wicket. We have drawn the series 2-2. Australia keep the Ashes. Boo.
They should be.
We'll see you later. Bye.